Right, Mick, we said at the beginning, affectionately known on the racecourse by all and sundry as Spinning Mick. You told me you were working in casinos as well, sort of in your youth. So was that where you got the spinning moniker? Where did that come from?
I wouldn't say I'm always affectionately called it, but yeah, most people, if they say, oh, who are you talking about spinning, they come back to me if they've been on course more than a couple of years. But gas fruit, when I was 18, the first job and only job I ever had was working in a casino. I was good at it, and it was easy for me, counting to 21 and 17, 35 times table. And I come to the races one day, and I think it was Leicester, I can't remember where it was. And Gaz said, here he is, the spinner, because he would sometimes come in of a Friday night, get his cheese sandwiches and a cup of coffee, and he'd watch the black. Gusto knew he used to come in all the time and watch blackjack. No, but he said it, and it just stuck, and it stuck for a long, long time.
No, but you working in casinos, you must have seen some real gambling casualties in casinos, because just by the very nature of being in there, you've got to not really care about winning, haven't you, ultimately?
I mean, it was incredible. Like I say, I was 18 when I started in Leicester, just a small casino, but even then, it was quite busy. Weekends, it was proper busy, and you would see the same faces, a lot of Chinese, Greek restaurant owners, Indian restaurant owners. Leicester's a big warehouse and knitting, and all the owners of that. And they would be coming in, and they'd be placing hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds every spin, and the casinos then used to close at 4 in the morning, which for most of them, that was their only chance of winning. If they were in front at 4 in the morning, they could leave, And we used to say to them, last 3 spins about 3:45, and they'd be betting like tomorrow was never going to happen. But I saw a chap come in there, very sadly, probably long before the Gambling Commission. He'd been left farmland and loads of land, and over about 2 or 3 years, he managed to, he went from gambling £500 a spin to £5 on red. Quite sad, really.
And the reason I'm asking that, so how many, you compare that to a racecourse, how many people have you seen that have been what you would describe as a gambling casualty on a racecourse compared to a casino?
Nowhere near as many, nowhere near, because the checks in a casino, all right, now Gambling Commission's arrived, and I think the Gambling Commission should have arrived for the on-course fruit machines, the bingo, casinos, because people were going in there, and just doing untold, and no one checked, no one asked, can you lose? And in London, when I worked in London for a year in the Victoria Sporting Club, people were doing fortunes, and I heard stories of the late 80s, and certain casinos would send cars to the houses of their best punters and bring them in. And if they did that now, they'd be fined untold fortunes.
Now, talking about punting, you're also a very successful punter yourself, so you dance on both sides of the fence. Would you agree with that, first of all?
I was, not so much now. I will have a bet now and again, pre-race. I'm more like to find a horse that I don't think will win, rather than a horse. It's easier to find one that won't win, playing the form book for me, than it is to find something that will win. But before Betfair came along, I was, we had spread betting, I was on course every day, and I did win. I wasn't a massive punter. If I had £200 on, that was a big bet for me. If I had 500, would be like 2 bets a year. But I won. But back then, there were lots of markets. There were people probably like myself, who were working for the firms and told, look, you're our sports, cricket, rugby, golf man. And it was just too much for them. So they would price up 1 million markets, and you only had to play when you thought they were wrong. And there was enough mistakes to make a profit. And Betfair come along and gave everyone, or exchanges, gave everyone the perfect price. And I remember thinking, well, I'm winning good money, now I'm going to get even better prices. And I put my hands up. The moment Betfair came along, my annual returns from betting dropped dramatically, to the point where I just didn't bother.
Now, one of the people you've repped for, Dan Haig.
Yes.
Now, Dan Haig has refused to do an interview, but he is well known as a formidable, very successful punter.
Yeah.
Now, did you learn much from Dan? Was he able to give any of that knowledge?
I mean, he always said, I remember one of the best things he said was bad beats worse, because you look at a race, you've looked at a race, and you think, oh, this favourite's a bit short, 5-4 in a bad race, and you think to yourself, I want to be against this, but you're almost against that horse without looking at the other runners. It's all very well thinking, I don't think A will win, but what do you think is going to finish in front of it? So he did teach me that, and also, even if you thought, well, this favourite's an absolute certainty, I didn't want to become a punter through the book. I didn't think that was the way forward, but even he would say, look, we just stand it, but stand it for the bare minimum. Choose your battles, basically.
So you started buying pitches for yourself, so you've done well enough to get a few quid together to buy pitches in around 2003, 2004 as Michael Cannon.
Yeah.
Where did Cannon come from, by the way?
Cannon is my wife's maiden name, and it's a lot better trading surname than my own surname.
Okay.
And I put the only Cannon anyone knows is the Gunners Cannon. I'm not an Arsenal fan or an Arsenal hater. I could take them or leave them, but it is a good trading name, and especially when you come down south at Ascot, you'll have people come up. Arsenal fans, they want to bet with you, or Tottenham fans or Chelsea fans, they want to bet with you because they want to take your money.
Okay. When you came in, it was a couple of years after Betfair had sort of changed the ring that we all of our generation all grew up with. So why did you decide to spend that money to become a bookie when you were making it pay as a punter and no X's?
Well, it was about the time, as I said, when with the dawn of the exchanges, my profits seemed to, did not disappear, but definitely reduced. And I didn't know anything else. I'd been racing for 15, 16 years. I'd long since retired from the casinos. I decided taking orders from other people was no fun whatsoever. And I just thought, well, I didn't get the value of the pitches right straight away. I bought well, I bought bad, I don't think there's anyone who can say they bought every pitch well, but I just thought it was a life I enjoyed and it was making a fair return, so why not?
And how big's your portfolio of pitches? How's it grown since those early days?
I've trimmed it down a little bit. I think a few people a few years ago realised that probably the best return on investment was buying the festivals, but that secret's out of the bag now. And I tend to treat my pitches as investments. As investments have to make returns, and that's how they should be treated.
Okay, now you also started betting in running, but from about 2012, so that was after the finding it on the floor period.
Yeah. Another boat I missed.
So was that something that you did from the pitch, where you sort of?
Well, no, I was involved in the hospitality boxes. It wasn't a closed shop. It was anyone could turn up within reason, and again, I had a little bit of an opinion. I tend to have a very good opinion on the all-weather, Southwell and Wolverhampton, which is handy because they were close to where I live, and I would make it fit, but I wouldn't ride the roller coaster of winning fortunes one day and losing fortunes the next. But like I say, I could tell you some stories that would make me look very, very silly and stupid and naive. But when you're winning X amount doing whatever you're doing, if someone comes along and says, "Oh, you should try this," you think, "Well, hang on a minute, I'm all right where I am." But yes, I've got a few good at it, but the game's almost died now.
Do you still dabble?
I do some from the pitch, because sometimes you can physically see it live. You'll have a little opinion, like you think, well, I saw this last week, it hit the front and stopped. So it's basically my opinion.
And is your opinion, does your punting, even though your punting brain, reflect the book that you make, or do you let the punters make it for you?
No, I keep the two very, very separate. Like I said, the pitch is an investment, has to make a return. My betting is my opinion, and I never let the two mix.
And what is your angle making a book?
Well, I've tried various different ways. At the minute, I prefer the methodology, whereas whatever wins, I win. So sometimes you get stuck, like a horse will collapse, especially with the exchanges being held up by threepence nowadays. But you get a feel for what the public are latching onto a horse. And I have, sometimes you think, well, I might want to get this favourite a bit early because I don't think this is a track that's full of odds-on punters. But basically, rather than cheer the 50 to 1 chances in, which I'm sure will happen on rare days, they get big results, I just want to put my hand out at the end of the day and earn X for my time and effort. I think, to be fair, it doesn't really matter if you're a traditional bookmaker, if you're an opinionated bookmaker, if you play throw it in betting shop bookmaker, or you go green. If you're consistent, we're all going to get the bottom line. It's just some of us will go. We're all going to get from A to Z, but some of us will go different ways. The actual end result isn't actually that different.
And would you say that is the derisory insult they give everybody, the green up button, or do you do it organically?
I don't really care. When there's 7 favourites, I don't walk past going, "How was it today, lads?" And if there's 7 50 to 1 chances, and they all go, "Wow, it was a green button," I couldn't care less. Everyone's entitled to do whatever they want with their own money.
And would you be in the majority or minority in the way you do it?
I would say the minority, but ironically, not quite as a minority as I once was. A lot of people have come to the conclusion they've got money invested in pitches, and the pitches have got to make returns. Some people are too old and stubborn to change, but I would say it's still the minority, but there's a lot more people jumped on the boat in the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, and as a punter, how do you see current bookmakers, and I'm not really talking about racecourse bookmakers, I'm talking about bookmakers. Well, bookmakers in inverted commas.
Yeah. Well, as I mean, off course.
Yeah.
Well, they don't. Well, I mean, even before, long before the exchanges and gambling commissions and all that, I was getting accounts closed left, right, and centre. You know, Bet365, whatever Diane's, I forget her surname. You know, very successful and should be applauded what she's done. But we started calling them Bet £3.65 when they first came because that's all you could have on. But they've got great algorithms. They're running as a business. And before they used to send you a letter saying, you know, our trading decision, your business is no longer viable. Now you go to have a bet and they say max bet 27 pence. So they're not closing your account because they don't want that publicity. But basically, to anyone who's got half a brain, they are closing your account. And it's sad really because they'll put in the paper, oh, some geezer had 100 grand on the football, and yet you'll have a feature race at Cheltenham or Royal Ascot, and Joe Punter walks in and wants a bet. It's not information. He doesn't know anything. It's a 26 runner handicap at Ascot for crying out loud, and he's minimalised to a token bet. You know, I know that they run all these big betting firms. They're run by bean counters.
Okay, then this last couple of questions. How viable are race meetings these days? I mean, during the week, do you pick your battles where you attend?
Most definitely, yeah. I mean, I've got good picks, bad picks, average picks, terrible picks. I'm number 1 at Southall on the jumps, and some midweek days I would say I probably shouldn't be there. The level of turnover isn't there. I'm just basically betting my opinion against Joe Punter's, and I go almost because I've got nothing else to do. But as I got a bit older, I've realised that I don't have to go to these days. But I'm number 4 at Worcester, or number 3, sorry, and I go, and I think I don't really think I should be here. And then you look, and there's another 12 or 13 bookmakers behind you. And you think, what are they doing? But I would say this is the oldest profession in the country without doubt. If you look at the average age of the proprietor of all these pitches here today, I will be young, and I'm 51, and they're just no different. But it's their money, it's their time. They can do whatever they want.
It's made me laugh because the first thing I heard when I started racing was the game's gone, and the second thing I heard from bookmakers nearly every midweek was, what am I doing here?
Correct. but you go next midweek and the same bookmakers who are saying that will still go. I've come to the conclusion, I'm saying it now and I mean it. If I say, like last year at Worcester, I said, that's it, I ain't coming here again, it's a waste of time, and I didn't go to another meeting.
Right, the final 2 questions, Mick. There appears to be, from the general public, and it's an obvious thing really, because most people hate bookmakers, not hate them, but they want to beat the bookmakers.
Yes.
You want their money, they want your money. So there appears to be little sympathy for racecourse bookmakers. Why should people care?
Well, I'm not looking for sympathy, but I think what happens is, the general consensus, as you say, of racecourse bookmakers is we all have an online app or a chain of betting shops behind us, and literally none of us do. Maybe 1 or 2 I can think of. And like COVID, for example, all the big firms, they got fortunes, record years, because people sat at home betting on the apps. We couldn't work. You know, again, I'm not looking for any sympathy, but I don't think Joe Public realised that we couldn't work. And then when we have come back, crowds are down, turnover's down, expenses have gone up. This is becoming very quickly not a viable business as it was. The obvious counter argument is, well, you know what the expenses are, you know what the turnover is, don't come, which is very true. But if it's your life and your business and you've got to pay the bills, think, well, I was going before and winning this much, now I can go and win this much, what are you supposed to do? So none of us are looking for sympathy, certainly not me, but I don't think Joe Public appreciates the time, effort and expense and cost of actually us being on track. And other businesses, they can put their prices up. If you're getting a decorator around, he might put his prices up. And I can't make you or any of this public here today have a bet. And I certainly can't make them, or we're going to have a £5 on, can't you have a £10 on? You know, we can only take what they want to give. But we accept that, and that's where we are.
Right, finally, imagine all the great and the good of racing were behind me, and they said, Mick, we're heartbroken by your story. What's the one thing we can do now to improve the lot of racecourse bookmakers? Just the one thing.
There's a question to end, Simon. One thing.
Start
You want the bookmakers to do?
No, what they can do for you.
What they can do for us.
You. Yeah.
If the great and the good were there, I think they should realistically look at what the racecourses are charging us to bet. They seem to group us in as a concession stand. Like I'm looking at the bar on the lawn at Ascot, and that's guaranteed to make a profit. You know, and we're getting treated like them, and we're being charged disproportionate to our turnover. So that would be nice. It would also be nice if they did us a little favour. And I'm concentrating on the racecourse at the minute. You know, when you buy a ticket, they send you an email. This is your QR code to get in. A lot of the tracks will say this is a cashless site. The amount of customers have tell me, oh, we didn't realise we could bring cash. Probably at the bottom in the small print, it will say, on-course bookmakers will accept cash, right? But who reads that? It wouldn't do them any harm to put it a bit more bolder on the email, and even on the website of each racecourse, there should be like a little promotional video which we could do and pay for to say, on-course bookmakers will be on site today when you arrive. This is how to place a bet. Plenty of people, oh, I've never done this before, what's each way mean? A little promotional video wouldn't cost the track anything to put there, and then say, you know, they accept cash. And in a world where gambling is being slaughtered by zealots, it's strange that they want people to bet on debit card, because it's a lot easier to track how your day's going. If you've got 100 quid in your pocket and you say, if that goes, it goes, and you've had a few sherbets and you're tapping away, all of a sudden you wake up Monday morning, oh, I've lost too much. Bring cash, you'll have a far better day, and it's a lot better experience when you win. So in a long-winded way of answering your question, I think the racecourses need to appreciate us slightly better.
Brilliant. On that, spinning Mick, thank you very much.
No problem, thanks very much.